Happy Sunday, everybody. This is Story Time with Surly, and on this episode, we are talking about first cars. Uh, my technical first car, was a 1984 Camaro Berlinetta edition. It was the beard hair. It was the cinnamon brown color with, excuse the rooster. He hears me in here talking. Cinnamon brown color with like the gold and aluminum spoke wheels, like 14s or something. And a dark brown interior. We called it a doo-doo brown interior. And it had the swivel tape deck with the super equalizer controls on it and digital gauges and monster 305 with some vacuum issues. Now, I'm not even exaggerating, some vacuum issues. It was pretty original. Like, it was original. There's no pretty original. It was original. And at the time, it was only, it was an 84. So at the time, it was only like 14 or 15 years old. And to a 14-year-old, that's an old car. Which is wild because most of my daily driver I have now is almost 24 years old. My wife's car's 20 years old. My motorcycles are 40 and 20 years old. 21 years old. And I don't consider them old. It's just wild how that works. So, the summer I got my driver's license, just before that, we had moved from South Carolina back to Virginia. And, so the routine was for us in the summertime was to come down to Texas to visit with my grandparents and my mother and my other siblings on my mother's side, my mother's other children, and there's a lot of us. So my brother and I came down after we moved. It might have been before we moved. I don't remember. No, I remember helping load the truck up. So it was after we moved from South Carolina to Virginia. Anywho, that's neither here nor there. We get everything moved. I come down here. I get my driver's license in Texas because it was an easier process than the god-awful DMV system they have up in Virginia. And I actually took my driving test in a 99 Honda Odyssey. 2000 Honda Odyssey. And I aced it. And what's wild about it is the course that I took in school was a full semester of driver's education. So when I got into the DMV, which is funny, it's where I go now because I live here, to get my driver's license, the DPS officer looks at my paperwork and he goes, I don't even know why I have to test you. You did a full semester. Like, we don't even do that here. So he kind of did it in a weird order. And then I messed up pulling into the drive-through lane. So they tell you to go get in your vehicle, buckle up, all that good stuff, drive around the back of the building, and pull into, I missed this part, drive around the back of the building and pull into the drive-through. So I go to pull through the drive-through and I pull the wrong direction into the drive-through. I was under the assumption he meant we were exiting behind the vehicle, the building, not go behind the building to go into the drive-through. The DPS officer walks outside and he shakes his head. And I was like, I was under the impression, I'm sorry, Anyway, so I take my driver's test, spend the rest of the summer in Texas, get my actual, I guess it was 3-4 weeks later, get my actual ID driver's license card, not just my paper card. And I head back to Virginia, get off the plane, get in my dad's car, get back to the house, and my Camaro's not there. And I was thinking to myself, and he and I have had this conversation before. I was thinking to myself, well, I wonder if he's getting it painted for my birthday, because this was right at my birthday. And if you know my father, that kind of thinking, I was trying to think positively. That wasn't about to happen. Not gonna happen. And hey, where's the Camaro? Oh, I sold it to my buddy Greg. Oh, cool. So he goes, I'm gonna let you drive the Cavalier. The Cavo, which my friends later called it. So the Cavalier was just a peach, a cherry, if you will. A 1990, and he got it when he joined the military. A 1990 Chevy Cavalier 2.2 liter overhead valve, push rod, monster, 5-speed, R12 air conditioning, which I was told didn't work, but that's a different story. We'll get to that story at a later date. I think I've already put it on my Facebook page once before. But he hands me the keys to this thing, and he's like, "We're gonna have to jump start it," because it had been sitting off. So he was using it as like motorcycle parts storage on the street in front of the house. I mean, I'm not being ungrateful in any manner. If you knew my father, he's probably gonna watch this video and he's gonna laugh because I'm not telling you anything that's not true. Uh, I'm very grateful. I just want to clarify that now. It's just funny looking back uh, on how I didn't take it as amusing as it is now. When you're in that moment, I guess sometimes you're like, this ain't funny. Not at all. Well, he hands me the keys. We're gonna have to jump start it. All right. So we got out there to jump start it, and like I said, he'd been using it as motorcycle storage on the street in front of the house. Dead battery. Go to crank it. It won't start. It's got fuel. Yep, it's got fuel. It's got oil. Yep, it's got oil. All right, we're gonna leave the truck running on it for a little bit. Left the truck running on it for 20 minutes. Still wouldn't start. And so, a little backstory on the Cavalier. Well, I won't get into that yet because that's part of this story. So the Cavalier wouldn't start. So we get to looking at it. Low compression, or he thinks low compression. Head gasket issue from it sitting because it, like, they bought the F-150. We moved. The car sat because they use the F-150 primarily for anything. And then my father, you can't get the man off of a motorcycle. Like, he's going to be one of them old guys you see at the barbecue joint on a three-wheeled Goldwing, which is fine. I'm not bashing anybody with a three-wheeled Goldwing, but he's going to be that guy. He's been riding for 40 years, I imagine, since he was a kid. And my father's not that old. He's 17 years older than I am, so he's 56. Will be 56, I think, this year. What year is it? 50, 57, 58, something like that. I don't know. We don't really keep track of stuff like that because it's not important to put labels on how old you are. Just makes you older. But so we decide, and I had worked and saved some money over the summer, cutting grass and doing odd and end little jobs in my grandma's neighborhood. And so I had a couple $100 sitting around. We're gonna go to Advanced Auto Parts and buy a head gasket kit and coolant and do an oil change, and might as well change the spark plugs while we're there. So we bought all this stuff, and I don't remember if we did the clutch at the same time. No, I think that came later after I drove it a little bit. Anyway, I wish this is in the era 20 years ago, 24 years ago, 3 years ago, where we didn't take pictures as, it's a weird thing to think about. We didn't take pictures like we do now. Not everything's video documented. Not everything's talked about and ran through the ringer on social media. So when we pulled this cylinder head off, the number, I don't know if it was number 4 or number 1, but it was one of the end cylinders, had so much carbon buildup because it had an original factory original AC Delco in it, because I guess at some point it carboned up and he couldn't get the spark plug out, so he just left it. He just let it ride. This thing had so much carbon buildup. I guarantee you this sucker was running like 13-to-1 compression or something in this cylinder. I mean, it was bad. Like I'm talking a good 3/4 of an inch of carbon. Like I don't even know how nothing was hitting nothing, but the whole combustion chamber almost was carbon in that cylinder. So we got the head pulled off, checked that out, cleaned that up, use naturally we did an at-home deck inspection with a straight edge and some feeler gauges and determined that the deck was okay. It was just a bad gasket. And we used a wire wheel on a drill and cleaned all that carbon off. And this car ran great. It ran awesome. So we get it all put back together. Everything's awesome. Everything's cool. First car, the way first cars go, AC doesn't work, so don't turn it on, is what I was told. Check the oil religiously because it's an old Chevy and they burn it. Had a sagging headliner, so you could be riding down the road and then be tapping your passengers in the head like this. The driver's side seat, because my dad is a much taller fellow than I am, and most average people even now, the driver's seat bracket was broken, and it was held up by a Southwest Bell, Charleston, South Carolina area phone book, which was super safe, safety first. We ended up buying a car at auction exactly like that Cavalier. We pulled the seats out of it and some other odd and end stuff. I got a set of tires out of it. And I drove that car for a good while to and from work. But I think ultimately that's where my mechanic prowess comes in, is I had to keep things running to get to work. I had to keep things running because I couldn't afford to drop it off at the shop and be like, call me when it's done. I didn't have that option. So most of my Saturdays and Sundays were spent doing maintenance or fixing something that I broke during the week, forgetting to tighten up stuff from the last weekend before, which I've done that before. That'll be another fun story. So first vehicles, what was your first vehicle? Comment below. I appreciate you guys watching. This is Storytime with Surly, episode 5. And just for clarity, I am sorry about the rooster. I am doing these stories to share some insight in ownership, maintenance, stories for my kids, because my oldest daughter, shout out to Peyton, watches with her friends. This is just a way for me to tell stories because I enjoyed stories when I was a kid. That way they have something to backtrack and fall back on and enjoy. So thank you guys. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, question, concern. Again, what was your first car? Comment down below. Y'all have a good week. Thank you.